maybe we can be the good guys in a not so great industry.
Yeah, I think like customers will find a way. If they think your business is unfair, they will find the way to create fairness.
Ultimately, there's really like one thing driving us, which is ultimately like be the world's most loved payments company and serve small business customers that are being taken advantage of or not being well serviced like every day.
All right, let me get this story started. So on paper, the story doesn't make sense. In 2007, a 23-year-old web designer from Calgary looked at one of the most conservative bank-dominated industries in the world and decided that he wanted to enter the payments space. Now, there's phases to this because there's company one and there's company two. We're going to talk about the evolution of that. But no finance degree, no venture capital, no Silicon Valley swagger, just a stubborn conviction that small businesses were getting ripped off and someone needed to fix it. I love that. The vigor of that step. So Nic Beique, French background, French heritage. Yeah.
Grew up in Quebec.
You grew up in Quebec. Where in Quebec?
So Montreal Island, West Island.
West Island. That's awesome. I love Montreal. Honestly, if there's any city I would live in aside from where I'm living right now, it would be Montreal.
Except for the winters. The Montreal winters are rough.
It says the Calgarian now.
Oh no, Montreal's much worse.
It's the iciness in Montreal.
It's just heavy snow and it never lets up.
Never lets up. Yeah. So you founded Helcim, a company that would spend, two phases. Phase one lasted how many years?
So that was like from 2009 to 2020 or 19. And then we reinvented ourselves and relaunched the business in 2020.
Okay, so Helcim 2.0 is about 5 years.
Yep.
And Helcim 1.0...
It's kind of 11 years prior to that. Yeah.
11 years. And you had this mission around building an ethical alternative to these payment Goliaths that existed. Because when you really look into this, everyone just takes their piece. If the small business owner is working hard to try and make ends meet, and in that transaction of a customer actually going to buy something, there are so many little pieces taken away, and that is interesting. Now, there's a few Goliaths in this story, right? The one that comes to mind in 2020 is sort of Stripe and Square, the sort of new fintech Goliaths. But early days, that's not the fintech Goliaths. It's sort of Moneris. It's sort of like who are the competitors? Who are the big Goliaths when you first get started?
Yeah, it was the bank-owned processor, kind of legacy processors. So you had Moneris and TD and Global Payments, and those kind of like old school processors that dominated the market. Still dominate. They're still giant companies to this day. The interesting part about payments is that nobody likes their payments company, but everybody needs to accept payments. Like it's a little bit like the telephone companies where it's like everybody needs a phone, but not everybody's in love with their telephone companies. And we thought, hey, maybe we can be the good guys in a not so great industry.
Maybe we can be the good guys in a not so great industry. I love that. I love that you know that well, because I've heard you say that before. So we're going to quote you on that. But let's be the good guys in the not so great industry. I think one of the interesting things that we've learned in a lot of these David versus Goliath stories as we've done this research is that whenever there is excess fat that an industry is sitting on, the consumer will and the competition will find a way to eat away at it.
Yeah.
Right? It's sort of like Blockbuster having, taken advantage of the late fees.
Yeah, the late fees,
yeah,
right?
Like
there's that quote from Bezos, which is like, your margin is my opportunity. Which is like, he comes at it much more aggressively from like a logistics and like massive cost reduction standpoint. But yeah, whenever you have a service that everybody needs, yet there's all these, excessive billing and excessive charges and like hidden fees and everything like that, you have to ask yourself like, why is that happening? And what's the opportunity in the market if customers are like letting that happen to them?
Yeah. And you came to a really interesting, I think, insight. Your sort of slingshot as David, one of your strategic insights was that radical transparency of fee structure was more important than simplifying maybe the pricing page or the fee structure. That if I'm more transparent and give my buyer options, then it's better than just like simplifying it, because then they can actually have more ownership, more agency over what they want to spend.
Yeah, it's weird that it's a little like counterintuitive, because you would think that there's kind of two ways to go about it. And you have the kind of Silicon Valley way, which is very much like make things very simple, which it can be very effective, but it doesn't mean it's actually like affordable, right? Like the simplicity can actually be even more expensive, right? Or you have the other way, which is how much do you actually trust your customer? How much do you trust that the average small business owner is actually, sophisticated enough to be able to kind of look at that, cut through that, and go like, no. How much am I actually paying? And can you put a more complicated rate structure in front of them if it's more affordable, which is what we did, right? Which is like a cost plus structure. We said like, here's the raw, true wholesale cost with Visa, MasterCard. We're just going to show it to you. They're very complicated, show it to you. And then we're just going to charge you a kind of negotiated margin on top, the way that like the big enterprise companies operate. And it works in their favor as a big enterprise. They use that model because it's what makes sense to them and what reduces their cost. But then everybody assumes, well, SMBs they're not smart enough to go for that model. They'll just want a 2.9% flat and to worry about it. And it's like, I don't know, this really hits their margin. This really matters. I think you're underestimating the average like SMB operator.
Yeah.
And like, they will do if it's costing them an extra like $10,000 a year, whatever, they will do their homework.
They will do their homework.
Again,
I think this is the insight. It's sort of the two pieces that I really like. It's the consumer is smarter, and I'm going to treat them like that they're smarter. I'm going to give them that radical transparency, and your margins are my opportunity. Yeah. Like I think those three together. It reminds me of a funny little story I had the other. I was couple months ago now. I was in New York. I was doing a fun gig for Chick-fil-A, the speaking thing. Yeah, it's a funny thing. I was with my wife. We went down. We were having fun. We went to this little Chapters, Indigo Chapters, right before the day before, and shopping around for books. And then I had to go use the washroom. So I go to use the washroom, and there's a sign on the washroom door, and it says, "Only customers allowed if you've paid." And there's a code, and you need to have a receipt for the code. And I was like, I just got to use the washroom. Like, I'm going to buy something. I've been in your store for 20 minutes. I look over, and there's like a little pile of receipts. Customers were leaving their receipts next to the washroom door because they felt like that policy was unfair to the... And I love that. Yeah, I think like customers will find a way. If they think your business is unfair, they will find the way to create fairness. They go, let people use the washroom. I literally picked up the receipt. I plugged it in, put the receipt back for the next person to use it. And I was like, well, that's so, and I'm sure the staff like come and clean that up every day, a few times a day when they see it happening. But I like this because this is where this episode is going. We're going to get into how you had the conviction to start a company like this, because you are a tiny little David in Canada, Calgary, to try to take on this massive industry. You were 23 years old when you first started the first business. Obviously, you matured in grade for the second business, learned some good lessons along the way. I want to kind of know the lessons of how David approaches the fight, day one versus how David approaches the second fight. Like, I think that's an interesting piece. And then how Helcim grows from this scrappy Calgary startup culture too. I'm interested in how startups survive in the cold, the cold and maybe not as money available, cities like Calgary versus right where everyone thinks like New York or Toronto or the Valley, right? Like where there's easier to raise capital. So that's where the story is going to go. That's where we're going to really look into it. So take me to 2007 and what is the insight that actually drives this? What's the moment? Is there a moment? What's the friend that you decide I'm going to do this with? Take me back to the beginning origins.
Yeah. So I started out as a geeky kid in the 90s that was really into computers, and what in the late 90s, early 2000s, what do you do with that? If you're good with computers and you're that kid, you build websites. Right. So like
I was on Microsoft Paint.
Yeah, there you go. Right. And you build websites for people, and I was a teenager and I would go to my barber and the local gym and different small businesses and just say like, I'd love to build you a website and here's the work I've done. And a lot of times they would say yes. And sometimes they would just write me a check on the spot and be like, how much do you want? And I'd be like, I don't know, $500, $700, whatever. And they would do it. And that taught me a few things. I fell in love with small business in those moments where it's like small business owners are like, literally, there's no reason to like write a check to a teenager that walks in your door that says going to build you something. But there's like a camaraderie that immediately built, which is like, these people are risk takers and they believe in like supporting each other. And there's like a kindred spirit.
Yeah.
And so I fell in love with small business right there. And that journey evolved into, we started building more and more websites, and we started coding e-commerce websites. This was kind of before the Shopify days.
Well, what were you building on?
You know, it was like you'd find like, and you'd host it yourself. So you'd like rack servers and like, I mean, it's the old school days, right? And then we started coding e-commerce websites, and then it led into, well, we got to plug in payments to those websites. And that was like, so I'm in my mid-20s now, and we kept seeing that, and there wasn't much. There was like PayPal and Moneris.
Yeah.
And it was awful. Every time we tried to pass a business, it would like, you know, PayPal's had a terrible reputation for like 25 years, right? And even the banks, like, you know, you'd have to go this convoluted process. I wanted to accept payments for my own business so I can accept credit cards for the work we were doing. And they wanted a $5,000 GIC and money down. And like, it was just this like, this is awful every time. Maybe there's an opportunity. And so we got in our heads, and we're like, no idea. And this was me and a co-founder at the time. And like, we're like, okay, we're going to start a payments company. The idea originally was like, we're going to mix our e-commerce with the payments. So a little bit like Shopify, right? So it was like, we're going to build e-commerce websites, but then we're going to pair them with payments. And now we don't know the terminology. We don't even know what to ask for. We're literally calling up banks cold and going like, I'd like to sell payments, please. And like,
I'd like to plug you into our website.
Yeah, it just did not like, you know, so it was a tough go. And it actually took 2 years of just trying to call banks to do this.
That's really interesting.
Oh, it was just like,
isn't that the story? Like for so many founders, it took 2 years of just calling.
Yeah.
Just like, we don't even know what to call it. We don't know what it is. I don't know how to Google it. I don't know how to search it. I don't know how to talk about it. But through enough conversations with bankers, the most conservative of the bunch.
And ironically, so we're Calgary kids trying to figure this thing out. And it was actually an American bank that was expanding into Canada that said, hey, we have this kind of reseller program. You can sell payments. You know, you'll have some control over it, and you can kind of build it into your thing, or you know. And we got introduced somehow, and they said, yeah, I think they were desperate to grow into the Canadian market, and something clicked, and it was the first one to say yes, and we just said like yes on the spot, like
my first yes.
And ironically, it came from an American partner, that was willing. That shows you how conservative the Canadian banks are,
which is interesting because I would argue that the Canadian banks adopted digital faster than some of the American banks. Is that an accurate
Yeah, but they're so
perspective?
monopolistic that they don't want to leave. They don't want to let anyone in.
Yes.
So like, it's kind of like, even if you were to start a telephone company in Canada versus the US, like it's going to be easier there. And I'm obviously like, I'm a patriot. I'm super bullish about Canada and everything that's happening right now.
We have some real oligopolies here in Canada.
Oh, yeah. That's banking and telephone. Like, it's just like, you can't get it.
Media, banking, telephone, right? Like it is controlled, and they're the Goliaths of these industries. They are, and they play defense. They actually play defense aggressively.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's aggressive defense.
It's aggressive defense. Full court press is what they're doing. Okay. So you get a first like opportunity to resell this payment service from an American bank that you could plug into your website. Do they have plugins? Do they have any of the like tech to actually be a website? No.
You're just like, you're coding everything from scratch. It's super manual. But then, so we built, so we're about to launch our first payments company with the e-commerce piece. And we decided to build a bunch of infrastructure that we needed to plug in the payments to the e-commerce, right? And like payment gateways and virtual terminals and things like that. And then so we launched, and we got 49 clients in the first year, and we're really happy. But then the feedback from the clients was like, yeah, your software is fine. We really like the payments piece. And the payments piece was actually a little bit more of the afterthought. It was like the two were coming together, but we had built a lot of these tools just to support the e-commerce. They're like, yeah, the e-commerce, I don't know if I'll use it or not, but like, can I keep the payments? Can I use more of the payments? And it was this realization.
Were you charging for the e-commerce or were you charging for the payments?
We're charging for both.
Okay, yeah.
And it was this realization. It's like, hey, maybe we're better at payments. Maybe this is like what we'd be good at. So we decided to shift our focus and be like, let's do that. And that was like the start of the first payments company.
Cool. And that's an interesting insight. Because you hear it from your customers, you hear it from the first ones. They go, "This is what we like as part of your product. This is what we enjoy." What did they say they liked about it? What was it? Just like this was easy. I have no other solution because there wasn't any. Was there?
No,
other
like
solutions?
I mean, Stripe. So this is like 2009, 2010. Stripe came out in 2011.
Yeah.
It was still like the early days of that world, right? So we created something that was like super simple. And then when it came to our pricing approach, even that early in, that came from inside, which was like, we want to be the good guys in a not so great industry.
Yeah.
So we're like, let's make it transparent. Let's make it honest. And I was there from like day one.
Yes.
And I think they resonated with that because the industry was nothing but, right?
And so initially, I guess you got this funded and started because you were building websites and e-commerce stores. That was your initial capital. You were fee for service. You're just professional services. And then you build this tool, and now you're like, okay, maybe we can just. Now, are you selling it as initially as like a SaaS membership license, or were you always, taking a portion of transactions?
Always a portion of transactions. There was a basic kind of monthly fee, and so we shifted to that, and there's no funding, there's no capital, I didn't know what the word VC was. I'm a Calgary. I didn't even know what the word startup was. I'm just a Calgary tech business owner, and we're gonna go and have to like
funding. Like I have to sell something to get money.
Yeah,
that's.
And then it was get 2 clients, get 4, get 8, get 16, and like keep growing it slowly and get to the point where like the first few years were slow. Like it took a few years for us to be able to like give ourselves a basic salary, and we're just kind of grinding it away. But we were building a small business and building a reputation locally as like good payments guys.
And that's the beauty of starting in your early 20s.
You
don't need much, right?
Yeah.
You're like, well, I don't even need that much. What's a basic salary?
I'm super thankful for my wife because she's carried me for a long. She carried me for a long time. So
we have a term for it. We call it the founders partners who carry it. They're the steady Freddies.
Yeah,
they're just the like. That's awesome. So shout out to your wife. What's your wife's name?
Leslie.
Leslie. Thank you, Leslie, for giving us Nick. So. Okay, you have this moment where you realize this is the opportunity. You start building towards it. It takes 3 years before you're making enough revenue to pay yourself. What is the 3-4 year? What does that look like at 5 years? What do you have? Is it a few staff? Is it you and the founders? How many clients?
Yeah, so we got to about like three staff and the two founders, and then there's my co-founder left. So then it was like me and the business, right? And it wasn't like at the time, it was just a small business.
You bought yourself a job.
Exactly, right? And it's like, okay, been doing that with me for 4 or 5 years. And it's like, okay, we got to this point, but change of heart kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
And this is like 2014 or so. And I still have it for me. I'm like, no, I think I can get this to a bigger stage. And, but we're still a reseller of the bank. So we're still like,
still skimming on top of the skim. Like
and you're still like, we're controlling, we have great customer service. We have good reputation. We're trying to be honest with pricing. But when I say trying to be honest with pricing, because you're still navigating the bank.
Yes.
And they're, you're saying, no, I don't think we should charge these fees. The bank's like, well, that's what we charge. And then you're trying to make up for it with even better customer service and even, better tools to kind of make up for that. So you always feel like you're in the shadow. And that was really tough. And I saw what was happening.
How can you do good when you are strapped to the Goliath, to the person doing bad? Like
exactly.
I'm just the other side of their coin.
And the best analogy I have is like if you're an insurance broker. So it's kind of like you could have insurance brokers with like fantastic reputations. They could take care of their customers. People refer to them. It's like, hey, you should, find my use my friend. But ultimately, you're still at the mercy of like the insurance companies.
Yeah, and whether they actually want to pay out.
Yeah, exactly. And how they ultimately choose customers and how they ultimately price policies and everything. So that's probably like the closest analogy where like we were building a really good reputation, but still under the limits of being in the shadow of a bigger kind of bank, right?
Well, and the regulations here in Canada, like how, like, you know, one of the pieces that when studying Wealthsimple story, for example, that I learned that they actually early on acquired an existing small kind of player bank that already had their licensing, because it would have taken too long to get the licensing to actually move forward.
Yep.
Like
but you have to have the pockets to do that.
Yeah, and they were raised. They had the pockets different. But it was interesting, like the regulation here in Canada. So, were you facing any regulation issues? That's why you sort of had to stick with the bank for a while.
It's not really regulation as much as like obviously we have regulations, we have like frameworks we have to operate under. But the main thing is just like a bank has to open a door for you. Period. Yeah. You cannot access Visa, MasterCard, Interact in those networks. You just can't access them without a bank connecting you to them. Yeah. So. Now, okay, we're mid 2010s. The business is starting to accelerate. Still the kind of reseller
organic
business,
growth,
but organic
like
growth,
referrals.
reputation, starting to get better at marketing and everything, right? So starting to grow, and it grew pretty well. So like in the next 5 years, all the way to 2019, we grew to about 40 people. So we're like 40 staff, 6,000 customers. This thing's becoming a real thing. Again, it's
all bootstrapped.
40
staff, 6,000 customers. That's huge. That's amazing. That's an amazing small, medium-sized business. Like that's
but you know, then I'm starting to see what's happening in the market. So I'm seeing like, Square is starting to really like grow, and Stripe is starting to become dominant, and they have different licenses than I do, because I'm just a reseller under the bank's shadow, and they were giving a license to essentially operate and kind of be their own payments company, their own processor, right?
Yeah.
And
so their relationships were directly with Visa, MasterCard, and
you still, it's funny because you're still, even in that world of payments, you're still got a bank kind of backstopping you, but they're giving very different licenses to kind of do it on their own, right? Yeah. So seeing what's happening, so the bootstrap business is starting to grow, starting to be more meaningful. I'm starting this bank relationship that we have down in the US. I'm starting to, it's a good relationship that I'm building, and they're trusting me more and more, and the business is becoming more significant. And I go to them and I go like, this has served us both well, but I need to move away from your shadow, and I want to go on my own and do this, right?
How do they feel about that?
I think that banks, regardless of the great partnership or not, like nobody wants to wholesale their business. Nobody wants to like create competitors out of nowhere. But we grew to a certain size where we said, look, I'm gonna get back on the phone for 2 years, and I'm gonna find a new way to do this.
Yes.
And I would love for you to be that partner, but you're gonna have to make a call, right? And they finally said yes, and they said, first one through the door gets bloody, and like it's gonna be. And so we got the yes in 2017. And from what the yes was like, they're going to give us this license to go on our own.
Okay.
Right. So essentially to be our own payments company where we are in charge of everything A to Z.
That's it.
But also the risk.
And you're paying for that license.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Right. Yeah. So, and everything is your responsibility, like risk, moving the money, all like technology, hardware, doesn't matter. Like it's all yours. If you want the keys, fine, we'll give you the keys. But like,
we're washing our hands of this. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. Yeah. And, so we go, okay, great. Like this is going to be this is the chance to kind of reinvent ourselves, and ultimately it's about our small business customers, like really like fell in love with those original small business owners and wanting to like be able to like fully actualize that mission that I had in my head, which is like to be the world's most loved payments company, which is an oxymoron. But I'm like, we're never going to do it under the shadow of a bank. We're going to have to go on our own and ultimately like bring this to the market the way that like we think it, like even with Square, even with Stripe, even with everybody in the market, like they weren't doing it the way I think it should have been done for the small businesses. Yeah. And the only way for us to do it is to go on our own and try to do that.
Mm-hmm. So what do you do? What do you do now with this new, so the new license is the birth of Helcim 2.0.
Yeah. So get this license 2007, or get the thumbs up that we're going to get this license in 2017.
Okay, there's some time between the thumbs up and the execution.
In my mind, I'm like, okay, I've got this business. It's profitable. It's bootstrapped, right? I want to do this giant pivot to essentially reinvent ourselves as a company. This my bank partner's telling me it's going to give me this license, but I got to convince their, and this is like the first one through the door gets bloody. So it's like I got to convince their compliance officers, their legal, get everything in place, get everybody happy and regulations and everything, right? And we're still just a small Calgary bootstrap company. And we still got to, like, we have a basic outline of a payment service, but like we're about to take on everything ourselves. So we got to go build a ton of stuff, and I got to find a manufacturer for my hardware. I got to build like a ton of systems.
Well, you're not just building a software company.
No, it makes no sense. Like hindsight is just like somebody from Calgary with like a small little business is no business trying to make a competitor to like
and maybe
Square,
that's why
like,
they agreed. You know, I wonder if that's why, like, you know what,
this guy's gonna give up.
Just go get your here, try it. Yeah.
So in my mind, I'm like, okay, so what I
mean, the hurdle is huge.
Yeah.
I think there's who said it? I think it was CEO of NVIDIA, Jensen there. He goes, if I truly knew and understood what it would have taken, I would have never done it.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember seeing that quote. You have to be, I mean, there's certain industries, I'm sure like building chips is definitely one of those, right? Where it's like, you kind of have to be like is the term masochist? Like you just like, you just have to like enjoy pain somehow at some deep level.
Yeah.
So yeah, we bit off way more than we could chew, but we're like, we are doggedly determined to prove the market that we could do this.
And are you aware of how aware are you of the competitors, like of Goliath? I find sometimes some people are like, you know what, we weren't even really aware of our competitors. We were sort of just doing our own thing, want to solve this problem.
So we looked at the market differently. So like you had Square, but Square is really focused on like restaurants, and that's where people kind of see it, right? Stripe, and both have done fantastically well, but Stripe is more like tech companies, and they want to find the Shopifys and the Ubers of the world.
They wanted to find, exactly. They didn't want to be the front line.
Yeah, and then for us, we like call it like real Main Street business. So like we wanted to help dentists and vets and auto mechanics and wholesalers and accountants, and like they're not, those small businesses were still not being like serviced by the new. By those new processors, they're still stuck with the banks.
All the old POS systems. Yeah.
And there's a lot of them. It's a giant, to give you a sense of the market, Square, which is like fantastically big, right? Like $50 billion market cap, has 2% of the market.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's
so
interesting.
Stripe is 5%, JP Morgan Chase, which is largest, is
5%. Now, does that include ShopPay?
Yeah, Shopify.
Shopify,
which is a quarter of their business.
Which is their quarter of their business.
Yeah. And then JP Morgan is 9% of the business. So it gives you the sense of like, it's immense. It's infinite TAM. But it's also massive barriers to entry.
Yes.
So we go, okay, we want to do this. And to go back to your question, like, no, I don't think I was realizing how much I was biting off. Like at all. It was like, it'll be fine.
The naivety of David is what allows him to be just delusional enough.
Yeah. Because you wouldn't start it.
You wouldn't start it.
Exactly.
Like I think that, but I also think that's why often you see startups happen with people in their youth, in the younger, because again, the naivety of, I can do that. I can pull that off. We can,
totally. And so we're in this point. So we do a couple of things. So we think it's going to take, we think it's like, this is going to take 12 months. It did not take 12 months. It took 3 years. So this is like the 2000. So we launched Helcim 2.0, like reinvented ourselves in 2020, essentially as a new company. What happens between those 3 years is a couple of things. It took us 3 years to actually convince the banks and the regulators to let us do this.
Yeah.
So it took a long time and a whole lot of work to do that, right? It took us 3 years to code and build the hardware
So the technology was brand new.
Yeah.
You essentially did not have the technology before.
Yeah, we had 10% of it.
You get 10% of it.
Yeah. And finding manufacturing
both hardware
partners,
and software.
Yeah. So it took us 3 years, and we're like, how do we fund this thing? Yeah, we have a small bootstrap.
What about the customers? Were you able to keep the same customer
only
base?
a small portion of it.
Okay.
And I was part of negotiations and everything. And we looked at like when we launched the service in 2020, there was a lot of things that we didn't have that the bank used to have, right? So we actually,
so you had a shittier product to a smaller market with no capital and less technology built out.
But we were on our own.
But you were unshackled.
Yes.
And so that is really interesting because so you were no longer capped, but you had bigger barriers.
Yes, that's exactly it. And so what we did is that the old, like a certain, like a big portion of our book of business, the bank bought from us, and that gave us some cash. So we kind of became our own kind of seed investor.
Okay. Yeah, you got your initial capital injection.
And so the old cannibalized the old business.
Are you comfortable sharing it? Like, what was the initial capital injection?
Couple $1 million.
Couple million.
Yeah. Nothing too big, right? And then for a business I had built 10 years prior building, and then you're like, I'm gambling it all. I'm putting all on the line. I've taken no money for myself, and I'm starting back at zero. And man, I hope this works, because the first 10 years was literally, there's nothing being taken out for yourself. It's purely just like a something that's about to be cannibalized to restart from scratch, but to be on your own. And I hope it works out.
Yeah.
The risk level, like hindsight, I'm like, oh man, like that's just
you took it all. You took it all, and put it back in. Like that is there's a I say, like, you want to make hundreds of thousands, you got to gamble tens of thousands. You want to make millions, you got to gamble hundreds of thousands. You want to make tens of millions, you got to gamble millions.
Yeah. And then we hired a bunch of junior developers out of like local Calgary junior developers. We hired 15 of them. And so I'm a self-taught coder. So we just coded for 3 years straight, millions of lines of code, just like day and night.
With all these junior devs out of college.
Yeah. And just like, but
no vibe coding.
No vibe coding. It's funny now we have a good mixture of like different senior and experienced developers that help our juniors and everything like that. In hindsight, again, I don't know if we would have taken on the challenge. We could have brought in a couple like experienced like Shopify folks and be like, there's no way. It's
too insurmountable.
Because we coded this with like 15 junior coders, and we just kind of went like, but nobody could tell us.
Your tech debt must still be a little bit.
It's a whole lot better than you think it would be. But I think we made some good decisions early, so we got lucky.
Good.
So we went through this process, and in 2020, we're like, holy crap, I think it's ready. And it better be, because we are now burning our own cash, that's seed money. We've just sold most of our customers back to the bank. We're essentially, we have no investors. We're burning our own cash, and like we're back at almost zero revenue. We're like, this better work.
Wow. In that 3 years, that's where it,
Yeah. And then so now it's 2020, the pandemic starts, and we're ready to launch.
That's a good wave. Is it?
It's a medium for us, because like dentists and doctors and like
there's all of the brick and mortar is down. Online payments move online.
So I call it like a neutral mix.
Yes.
For us.
Yeah. How does your team react to that moment? What's the feeling? I mean, there's the feeling that we all had of like, what is going on? Is it just 2 weeks? It's 4 weeks? It's 6 weeks? Okay, what is life ending? Like, there's a few existential feelings, I'm sure, but what is the feeling in the team in that moment from a business perspective?
I think it's excitement, because I think that some of the OGs that were with us like knew the frustrations of being under the shadow of a big bank, and we are all really eager to go out on our own and prove to the world that we could do it on our own. Also daunting. I think that I remember that we created this like war room with the desks, where when new merchants signed up, this is like the first day, the first month of launch, everything for the new service, like all of a sudden we're responsible for risk and fraud and everything. Like we took on everything. Yeah. So we just to like kind of create that safety in a group feeling. We have our head of risk. It's like we've been preparing, and we have policies, we have processes, but it's like this has never like happened on our own, right? It's very different than when you're being shadowed by a bank versus doing it on your own. So for the first month, we literally had this like big table, and everybody sat like the executive, my CFO, my CEO, everybody, like we're just sitting around this table, and we're just making approval and decline decisions together as a group. Just to we have our process, we have our systems, but just to like, part of the reason I did that was to try to like make it feel less scary.
Yes.
Because everybody was like scared to death.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So it was just like, hey, look, this accountant signed up. How do we feel? Okay, let's go through the data. Let's go through the credit. This feels good. Okay, yes, we're good. Everybody's good. This is not as scary. Let's approve it. Okay, next one. And we start just kind of like building that
little
muscle.
Momentum, little muscle, little feeling of here, we got this.
Yeah.
One just stacking one after another. You're in Helcim 2.0. The pandemic hits, or almost out of capital. What does the first early customers look like? Do you start gathering some momentum? How quickly do you recover some of that gap in burn? Like, what do you have to make in that first year to not freak out from a cash perspective?
So we were lucky that like the signups started coming in pretty quickly.
Okay, good.
And
that's because of like a little bit of brand reputation, a little network.
Because we really debated. We're essentially, it's a new company. Do we rename it? Do we leverage some of the 5 stars and the reputation we had built already and just clarify the market like this is a new service? And we decided the latter. And I think that served us well because there was already a group of customers that like knew about us.
Yeah.
And
you leveraged the brand.
We were the good guys in the not so great industry, right? And now we made it easier to sign up, and
the fact that you could still use the brand, because I guess you sold the parts. You didn't really
exactly. Yes. We sold the customer base, but we didn't sell the brand.
Honestly, that's huge. I think that's a huge advantage that you had in those early days, right? That you had an existing base of people who knew and recognized the brand that you could take to that next level.
And that's what we did. And like so, then the business started growing quickly. We realized that there's a lot of stuff that we needed to fix. So we had bitten off a lot and we had to chew through it all, right? So, our mission is to be the world's most loved payments company. And our customers were like, we love the mission. We want you to deliver on it. But everything's a little bit on fire kind of thing, right?
We want you to be lovable, but your product needs to work.
But customers were amazing in giving us the patience through it because I think they knew that our heart was in the right place. And like we were honest about the pricing and the way we delivered the service and like how we built it.
Even as I think about how you did the pricing, like we're talking about transparency and honest, but also one of the themes that we see for the Davids versus Goliaths is like the Davids choose hard.
Yeah.
The Davids choose, we say like, when Goliath is chasing after you, you run up the stairs, not down.
100%.
Because Goliath can't run up the stairs.
And I think that if anything that is worth doing should be hard because then the reward on the other side would be better. So we have 4 core values, and one of those is we choose the harder path. And it's like we always ask ourselves: are we taking the easy decision? Or are we taking the hard decision? Because odds are the hard decision will have a better payoff and a stronger foundation. Mm-hmm. And we are always train ourselves and our team like. Do the harder decision. Yeah. That doesn't always line up because like sometimes it's you're so tempted to cut corners.
Yes. Or like this shorter decision will get me to the next one. Like you kind of convince yourself it's the right short term.
And you have to there's still a part of it where you have to balance it because as a startup, if you have just 6 months to live or whatever it is like especially in the early days, right?
Yeah.
Like sometimes you're like, okay, I'm gonna have to figure out. But I think the decision applies especially to like decisions that impact brand and how we're perceived in the market and like our core values.
Yeah.
That has non-questionable. Like you got to, you got to take the harder path.
Yeah. You mentioned the focus of your customers. I think it's really interesting because you sort of called them before. You've got the forgotten middle, sort of this. And I think this is interesting because again, I see it in the other David versus Goliath stories. So one of the stories that we like to tell is Jesse Cole's Savannah Bananas sort of, craze that's happening. They're obviously not software or tech, but it's like this little collegiate baseball team out of Savannah, Georgia manages to essentially sell out more than some MLB teams, right? Yeah. And how do they do that? And Jesse talks about a little bit of the forgotten middle. He goes, most people think you're supposed to build the best baseball team, but that's only the diehard baseball fans who want better baseball. But if they want better baseball, they're not coming to the collegiate baseball league, right? Like they want better players and better baseball. It was like, no, actually it's the families and the kids who are just coming for entertainment.
Yeah.
And if I served them fun, I can get more people to show up. And so it was this, like sometimes, I mean, it's the innovator's dilemma, right? It's Clay Christensen says, when you chase the best customers constantly, they want bigger and bigger mainframes. So IBM builds bigger and bigger mainframes, and then Apple goes and makes a shittier computer for a smaller market, right? And so you sort of go, we're going to make transparent but complex pricing for this forgotten middle.
I think what's interesting is that you have all these startups that talk about small business, but I think a lot of times they haven't spent enough time with what small business is.
It starts a small business until I can get big business. That's what it's like, wait, small business and then move up market.
Or if you think about like, what's a small business? So like we get that with when we're educating like investors and about our market and everything like that. We're like, what is small business to you?
Yeah.
And people will say, oh, like the corner store or the little restaurant or whatever. And it's kind of like, what is big business to you? And it's like, well, McDonald's and Fortune 500 or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, there is a giant, enormous world in between that nobody seems to like pay attention to. Where it's like the best, I like to say,
the law firms, the consulting firms, the dentists,
or the wholesalers in that industrial part of town that are selling like aviation parts and plumbing. Yeah, you might think about the plumber. That plumber is going to another business and buying their parts from, and that there's a whole supply chain, and there's like this giant, like when you're flying over, flying over a city. It's kind of like you can think about like, the restaurant, the retail shops or at the mall or whatever is the case, right? But it's like, a third of that town is just industrial and it's just like super interesting. I think they're super interesting. Like call them like, we like to say like we love unsexy businesses because they're the best. Like a tile and stone distributor, an aviation parts like specialty manufacturer, a medical supply wholesaler. Like those are great businesses and they can make but they're still, in the world of the banks, in the world of whatever, they're still small business.
Yes.
But they're not a coffee shop.
No.
And I think that's what people like that. I think that was our insight, was that I think in the world of, even with like Silicon Valley investors and everything like that, it's like, it's either like, well, you're either making widgets for coffee shops or you're making widgets for McDonald's, and there's nothing in between. And it's like, you are so wrong.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we're like, okay, fine. They're the forgotten middle. It's a pretty giant middle. Then that's where we're going to go.
Mm-hmm. Now, there's no startup story without a lot of pain, with a lot of suffering. You get some momentum. You start to get some customers, but this period of 2020, 2021, and then in between where you are then and today, what are some of the most kind of painful and difficult parts of trying to build this business, of tackling on the Goliaths? Because now you officially are playing in their space. Yeah. You're no longer a reseller. You have enough of a product that you're making a dent. You've got a brand, and you're going to this forgotten middle. They've been collecting payments. Yeah. So I can just switch over. You're not going to just be like, okay, here's our service. Like I'm already with the service. I'm already here. Like, I don't know. I'm going to switch it over. Switching costs with this kind of stuff feels annoying, right? Like, what are the difficult moments of getting these customers, the difficult moments of product, the difficult moments in your leadership with your team? Like, you are now at you're no longer the fun stage of building something new and exciting. You have some customers, but your product's not good enough. Your team is likely not good enough, and you don't have enough capital, and your brand's not good enough. Nothing's good enough.
You just bring back all the pain. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What? Give me some of those moments. What's happening?
Yeah. So, a couple things. So we see a lot of growth at first, which is great, like initial growth, which is wonderful. But everything feels on fire. Yeah. So I say the first 2 years, everything was just like chewing through everything we had bitten off. So like you want to get into all these like new features and new products, and you're like, we cannot.
Yeah.
Like we just have to like ultimately like deliver on what we're doing. My CFO, Marge, who's wonderful, comes into my office in late 21 and says, this business is growing quite a lot, which is good. We need to find investors like yesterday. And I didn't know what a VC was. What is that?
Investors. Right?
And then on top of that, we launched with like this little hardware. It was like a little calculator, like a little card reader for the chip and pin and everything. And this is kind of back to the original of like, when we moved away from the shadow to bank, we didn't have as much as data because they had like much more equipment and offerings that we had. So we went back to just like, this is the only thing.
Square reader.
Exactly. That's the only thing we could bring to the market. And the customers are telling us, we love the payments, but the hardware, it's kind of not what like I need, right? I need like a real smart terminal. I need this, I need that, whatever, right? So we had found this manufacturer in Hong Kong that was helping us build these things. And we were working with them to launch a new unit that was more robust and everything like that. And I'll get into the story, but essentially like they ghost us. We don't know what's happening. We're about to do a manufacturing run. it turns out that Stripe bought them because Stripe was also using them to build their hardware. And day one, they tell us, yeah, you can't use this manufacturer anymore.
Talk about
So
Goliath
everything's
showing,
kinda-
talk about Goliath showing up and
Yeah.
saying, I'm going to buy the supply chain.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
And
It's gonna
there's not
vertically
many of these
integrate
manufacturers in the
so
world,
that you
right?
can't compete with us.
Yeah.
That's some good defense. That is the okay.
So we are.
Did you lose? Did you guys lose? You guys lost some money on. I mean, you lost time and resources on that, but the contract, I guess. I don't
It's more bring a piece of hardware, like this gets to regulation and compliance and security. It can bring a piece of hardware to market can take about 2 years.
Yeah.
And so it's a whole lot of like investment and stuff like that, right? So we've got enough inventory to carry us for a little bit, but now through I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but like we had just raised capital for the first time.
Yeah, in 2020.
This is 2022.
Okay.
Right. So we raised our Series A. We brought in great investment partners. They saw, it's funny because when we were pitching investors, we thought we're like, hey, like we're growing really well, massive market. We have the bootstrapping experience. Like, this is going to be easy. First of all, fundraising is never easy, or at least for most, it's not. And it's funny because the most pushback we got from investors, like, oh, there's already like there's Square and Stripe and there's other in the market, like Shopify. Like, you're not, why bother? It was literally like,
there are new age Goliaths and there's old age Goliaths.
Yeah.
There's the
There's
banking
Goliaths
mares
everywhere.
and there's these huge guys in tech. Yeah. What are you doing?
Yeah.
And who are you?
And it took some courageous investors that saw what we're doing and said, you know what? Yeah, these guys are definitely choosing the harder path. And they still told us, like, you guys chose a really hard business to get into, but if it works out, we're gonna see something really big, right? And so you have to find investors that match those values, that like believe in the harder path, right? So yeah, we have new investors. We just lost our manufacturer. Everything still feels on fire, starting to get better, but there's growth. So it's as long as there's growth, you can make it work in a startup world.
You lost your manufacturer. You got some investment. What do you do when you lose your manufacturer? You just start shopping around.
You start flying around the world.
You just start flying around. And like, you've never done manufacturing.
No.
So are you just like, I'm flying into Hong Kong? Like like,
you're trying to find, spending time in Taiwan, spending time in other places, going like, who can do this for us?
And you're just
pulling on all the connections that you've made in the payments world, going like, hey, who manufactures PayPal's hardware? Yeah. Who's manufacturing Squares? What about Clover? What about Toast? Like, who's behind who, kind of thing? Yeah. And you're trying to get introduced. You're trying to get there, and
you're trying to find the 2 or 3 factories that make everyone else's things.
Yeah.
Like, because
and we found it.
Yes.
And we found a great partner in the end, and we learned some lessons too, which is, when it comes to manufacturing, I mean, realistically, you're never electronics. You're not going to manufacture them in North America. You have to find a partner in Asia that's going to manufacture it.
There's no one manufacturing.
Exactly. Right. But there's some key lessons there, which is from a contractual basis, make sure that like you have better structure in place so that if they have an exit or whatever kind of thing, like you have some protection there, right? Yeah. And then, but more importantly, build a great relationship, and that's something that we've invested heavily with our new partners. They are invested in our business, like. Okay. So like we've learned that lesson.
That's a really interesting theme I'm sort of finding in a lot of these David versus Goliath stories. Also, it's like your key institutional partners. You want to increase their skin in the game.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, because you want them to like you need somebody that can support you and pack a punch if you need that.
I also need you to know that my success is your success. Like I need you here. Take a piece of this, right? Like and help us. And that's sort of this like David building his army. Yeah. This is like, okay, right? I'm going to collect a few, lieutenants. I'm going to collect a few people in order to be able to like effectively take on this battle.
And it's thinking about like when you say building that army, it's also thinking about like when there's giant competitors, giant Goliaths in the world that are like dominating the market, who is not getting to participate?
Who are they blind to? Yeah.
And who is not part of that, is being excluded from that success.
Okay, that's different. So, who is being excluded from this?
So there's a couple ones. So obviously from our most importantly from our customers, right? Like we felt that we were targeting portion of the market that was not being served well and was being neglected, right? So it's like, they have a skin in the game. And we've actually gotten, every time we've done a round of financing, we've actually gotten some customers, some key customers in there to invest into our business. And like, just not on a big scale, but like we love having like a key customer come into a round with us and be part of that story. So even on the bank side, because you still, as a fintech, as a financial technology company, you still need bank partners, right? Yes. So it's if you have like Stripe or Square or others, right? They have their own bank partners and they're happy to be there. Well, who's missing out? And maybe they want to be your friend, right? And that's how we've continued to kind of partner in that way, right? And same thing on the manufacturing side. So it's just like you can rally a coalition of people that would also be part of that next wave of success that are being excluded from
and
from
they feel
this
like
one.
they missed out from the first round or the second round. It's also a good way of fundraising.
Yep.
Who felt like they missed out, right? Like who's
well, we part of so we did a Series B in 2024, and so we 5x'd our business from the A to the B, and that was great. And part of our pitch was, if you go to NerdWallet or Forbes or whatever, and you look for top payment companies, right? We're usually in the top 3, and we would tell investors like 2 out of those 3 of those companies are worth $50 billion, and one of those is raising a Series B. So, like,
so do you want a discount at what the future?
Exactly, right? Do you want to come in because you kind of missed out on the other ones, but we're making this happen again, right?
Yeah, I'll write my check later. So you mentioned this. So there's obviously these low moments of like difficulty of manufacturing, difficulty of just like keeping up with the product. The product's on fire. There's so much, everything's on fire. But then, you raise your Series A, and between your A and your B, 5x growth. So clearly there's some momentum. You're really building on this. Talk to me about what's working. What are some of the pieces that you're like, team is starting to work, strategy's moving, brand is moving? What are the pieces that are clicking that you start to double down on? It's no longer just putting out fires, but here are leverages that we now start taking advantages of.
I think we knew from the start. I think that insight paid off in terms of like our perspective on the market and who was being underserved and that they needed something else. I think we have, so that's one thing. I do think that all of the success is always a mixture of like strategy and serendipity.
Okay, so I mean, that's what we say. It's like, do you ride the wave when it comes, or do you fight the wave?
Right.
Like, is your surfboard ready? And like we say, the Goliaths are sort of sitting and standing on top of the water, and the water is crashing into them, while the rest of us are on surfboards that we've either learned to surf or we're drowning.
Exactly.
So you're paddling because you're on the surfboard. You haven't learned to surf for those first few years. You're paddling, but then you start to learn to surf like that. So what is that serendipity as this tidal wave of shift in payments? Because there is a wave of shift in the payments industry that you didn't have anything to do with. It's just the reality of the shift in technology.
And are we a part of that right wave? Which I think we got lucky that we are, because those legacy providers like the Moneris of the world, like the TD of the world, are really starting to kind of spin their wheels and not keep up from an innovation standpoint.
Yeah.
And I think customers are starting to really realize it's like when you're thinking about, maybe you were with the bank, 3 years ago, 5 years ago, when you signed up for your bank account and they gave you a machine, whatever, right? But if you're thinking about changing that, you're no longer considering them as part of the mix, right?
No.
So now you're comparing Helcim with the few kind of new modern ones in the market and seeing who's better fit for you. So I think we've been lucky to be able to, like, obviously it took a lot of work and a lot of risk, but to be on the right side of that what's happening in the market. I think that we are, the other thing that's changing in terms of like our business is like we start bringing in this past few years, like some more experienced people. So I think we were really dogged about this, like bottom up, everybody's got to be a junior, everybody's got to be green. And like, that came from the right place. I think that came from that, like that defiance, and like we can build it right here.
We want to be the rebels.
Yeah.
We want to be the
rebels.
We want to arm the rebels with the financial tools.
But I think that's like me learning as a leader, going like, you know what? You don't need to relearn every lesson from scratch. Like, like what if we still have that attitude, but then we also can bring in some people that says like, hey, like, don't waste your time for 6 months, like learning this lesson. I'm just going to tell you this lesson. Why don't we go try this instead? Right. So we start bringing in some more, especially at like the leadership level, right? Like I love the mixture of, we try to have this 3-to-1 ratio at the office, which is 3 juniors for every senior. So it's kind of like you have these like really wonderfully driven young people that like want a shot. But then you have somebody that like been there, done that. They can like be like, hey, don't step on this landmine. Why don't we just walk around this one and like kind of help us accelerate? It took us a while to like really learn that lesson, but in the past few years, we've really kind of started bringing that ratio.
I mean, you think about the best sports teams, right? You've got these energetic, brilliant young athletes who need a coach who's just a bit older, a bit done that. Go, okay, let's do this. Let's just focus the team. Come on, guys. Right?
You think about even like say hockey or whatever. It's like the captain is usually a little bit more like, a little bit more, maybe not graze, but a little more experience that is like who is setting the tone and helping the team focus, right? So.
Now, I love this point selfishly because we got to work with you guys on leadership development. We got to work with your leaders. We got to help them level up, help coach them, help put them through a program, a lot of learning and development there. But I got to say, like, even when we first engaged, I think I said this to you, it was like, I was really impressed with the intention around culture, the intention around values, the intention around we want to use culture as a differentiator in the team that we attract. We want to invest in our juniors to help them grow because you were investing in leadership development, you're investing in skill development. And so talk to me about that. Talk to me about this. Where does this philosophy come from? What is the philosophy around culture that you've held? And where have you seen it pay off? And where have you seen some of it fall short and some difficult moments as you corrected that culture? Because I think the analogy we use for culture is like culture should be like black licorice. Some people love it and some people hate it, right? Like it's not for everyone as you start to define what it is.
100%. I like to compare culture with like flavors of ice cream, and like every company is a flavor, and that doesn't mean it's your favorite flavor, but like for the people that love, I don't know, mango peach or whatever, like they're going to click with you. And what we try to do, and that was our mindset from early on, was let's just so we made our culture book public. And we did that 4 and a bit years ago. So kind of like around the time we relaunched our business. So it's helcim.com/the way. It's just the way of the Helcim. And
the way of the Helcim. That's what we got. That's what we got here. We got on the shirt. Zoom in on that.
So the idea though was really around, like, we knew pretty early on who we wanted to be and who we didn't want to be. Part of it is because we're trying to be, like I said, the good guys in the not so great industry. Like, we knew that values and how we made decision needed to be set like really early on, because we were in an industry where you could lose that very quickly. And the other part why we did that was around, and I say we, it's like our leadership team was around, because we were so junior focused. You had the entire team was just these like green first job professionals. And we felt like we just had to like give them a guide on how to like operate and how to like better make decisions. So that kind of forced us to like, if we had hired all these super experienced people, I don't know if we would have had like this need to like set culture. Then it can bite you on the other side because you didn't think about it enough. But for us, it came from like, we need to give them a handbook. Like, they're so green, right? That was wonderful because it kind of really, if we force ourselves to go through this exercise for a long period of time of like who we are, what do we actually care about? And while the culture book has had a couple different iterations, it's actually still pretty similar to the original. When we after we did our Series A, which is in 2022. After, you only celebrate like 2 days after the check cleared, and like you just like
in the bank account.
when everything is like solidified and it's real. I actually went to one of our co-lead investors on the Series A, who's a long time Rob at Information Venture Partners, IVP in Toronto, who's like an old school VC that's been around the block a few times and like really knows the space well. And I asked him straight up, I'm like, why did you invest? Now that the check has cleared, you can't take it back. Why did you invest, right? And like outside of like, the market potential in the company, and he shared that we were really intentful. He saw that we were really intentful in our culture, and in his experience as a venture capitalist, is companies that are very intentful with their culture has given them alpha and like disproportionate returns, right? Where it's like companies that like they're not just trying to follow like the typical kind of cookbook. They're actually trying to like really be meaningful in like how they want to operate as a company and what makes them unique and everything like that. And I think that just made us kind of double down on like, oh, this actually matters, and it matters to a certain type of investors. And that was, I think, really reaffirming that like we're on the right path.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, it impacted the investors' decision. You gave your team a set of values that become decision-making parameters.
Yep.
And then through this sort of culture building, you built this culture of leadership where this responsibility for all people to take on the culture. This sort of leadership is not a position and you don't wait for permission, that everyone owns a part of it. And I think what I saw in your culture and in your team is this real sense of empowerment, of giving people the ability, the ownership of owning their teams, of owning their decisions, of owning quite a bit of that. Talk to me about that. What's the transformation for you as a founder to be able to create this culture that allows for fluidity in leadership, where it's not always just, my way or the highway, but there are leaders that are being developed across the organization to run with things?
Yeah, I think if you look at, you have, because you went through the training with us. When you sit down with our leadership team and my executive team, they're actually really different personalities, like really different personalities. And the fact that we're able to like have that, but then still be very value aligned, I think is a testament to like just being really straightforward about who we are, who we're not, and where like our other, and where is there a lot of give, right? So like our fourth core value. So I'll give you the 4 core values, right? Yeah. We are builders. That's really about that, like that building, coding, everything building kind of mindset of like, we build things and we build things well, and we invent our way out of problems. That's all part of it, right? We choose the harder path. And we talked a lot about that. We are trustworthy, and there's a line in there that says like, trust is hard to gain, easy to lose, and continuously tested, right? And that's with our customers, that's with each other, that's everything, right? And then the fourth value is like, we are a company of many, and that's like about being mindful that we even say like the most important thing is to us is our people, and then our customers, and then and not because we don't think our customers are like, we live and breathe our mission to be the world's most loved payments company. But if you don't treat your people and with the way that you should, they won't take care of your customer. No. And that's the problem with some of these companies that are like, they say they're customer obsessed, like say Amazon or whatever, right? But if they treat their people like shit, then it's going to cascade down to the customer. Yeah. Like you see it in customer service, you see everywhere, right? Yeah. So you really have to like, so the fourth core value is we are a company of many, and that's really about like acknowledging the fact that's not just about, there's a diversity component to that, but there's also like a company is just a bunch of people, taking away the titles and the walls and everything like that. We're just a bunch of people on a couple floors of a downtown building, try to build something really exciting together. Yeah. And we have to acknowledge that like it takes a whole lot of humans to like working together and to make that happen. Yeah.
What are some of the best or ones that you reflect on, best sort of culture or people decisions that you've made? And not people decisions in terms of like key hires, but about the culture. So like you made a decision to codify the culture. Yeah. That had its implication and it helped significantly the team. You say one of the codifications of that culture is really we are a company of many. This idea of taking care of the people. What did some of those decisions look like? What did you have to invest in? What was some of the trade-offs that you had to make in order for that value to come to life?
So obviously publishing a culture book early, which was really like nerve-wracking. We did it originally, was one of the best decisions that we made because
those people to filter out
amazingly, and that people like, it's so common that people sit down and interview with us. Like, I read the culture book, I read the Helcim. Oh my God, here's what I clicked with, whatever. And like, it's just such a wonderful like filtering process and to get the people excited. I think it also helps us attract really talented, great people because they get, they have one opportunity. They know nothing about what that flavor of ice cream is. And then they see our mango peach and they read in depth about it. And they're like, you know what? I like this flavor and I want to work there. And I think that probably gives us access to like better talent because it's going to filter, but it's also going to get people more excited about our opportunity, right?
Yeah.
We do a couple things where I still meet with everybody. And I hired a company with over 2,000 staff that still does this with their CEO. And I'm like, if that company can do it, I can do it. Where I meet with everybody that's new. So like we now lump it every couple of weeks where it's like anybody that's new in the room and I sit down for an hour and I chat with them. And I kind of go through high level expectations. And one of the early things I talk about is like, it's a little bit of like a no assholes policy, which is pretty common. But
it's common stated. It's not common practice.
Yeah. And one of the way that we explain that is we go, my expectation of you, you're new today. There's going to be somebody new next to you in a week, a month, or whatever, right? And every single person has heard me say this as this company, and now you are hearing me say this, which is my expectation is that we should be able to take any person of any background, any technical background, any experience. It doesn't matter. And we should be able to like drop them into a team. And the gut reaction of that team has to be spin their chair. How can I help you? How can I make you successful? And if you don't experience that, please let me know immediately. And then my expectation of you is that you carry that tradition because there's going to be a new person next to you soon. And then you better spin your chair and be like, how can I help you? How can I make you successful? And the fact that they hear that from the CEO, day one or week one or month one, whatever, right? I think is like just setting that ground early. And my other executives do, they go through core values together. We love a book, 5 Dysfunctions of the Team.
Yes.
Everybody gets that book day one. And then at month one, the executives will sit down and like go through the book, like do a little book club with them, be like, what did you learn? What are the key takeaways? So I think we're just
eventually the David versus Goliath book is going to be the next one on their list, right?
I agree. I agree. So, and then the main thing though is that like we are being purposeful in it's almost like obviously what you say matters, but more importantly, you are making a point that this is real, culture matters, our decision-making matters, and we are setting that tone day one. Yeah. And I think we're setting a clear tone that like, this isn't just posters on the wall with slogans or whatever. It's like, we live and breathe this stuff and this ethical and kind of like character, call it character, like matters day one.
Yeah. The intentionality, how you bring it to life, how you speak about it, how you teach it, how you bring it out. Has there been a moment where you feel you faltered on it?
Yeah, I mean, many. It's nobody's perfect. I think that we had we evolved our culture, and this is the time that you came in and helped us with our leadership and our kind of next level training. Is we went through this transition where we realized that like, yes, we want to create a wonderful, happy place and where people feel appreciated and trusted and all that, but we also want to be this really like high performance company. Mm-hmm. And I think a lot of companies go through this, especially like, we raised our Series B, we continue to grow. We're now servicing tens of thousands of customers, we're tens of millions in revenue. And all of a sudden, like the stakes are higher. We really want to be this big, giant success. And like, it's kind of like being moved to the next league in sports and going like, oh, we need to set a higher bar. Yeah. And how does that integrate with our culture? Mm. And I think we struggled for a bit, and ultimately we landed on like, let's be honest with ourselves. What do we really, what do we want? What do I want when I get up? What kind of company do I want to go? And I landed on, I want a talent dense company. Yes. And I want a company where performance management matters and where, you hold people to a high standard. And like, I think we're really good at like creating really healthy, like, honesty and dialogue and like a great happy culture, but I don't know if we're creating as much of like a performant culture. Mm-hmm. And so we went through this cycle and we updated the culture book and we were really intentful with the team of like, here's what's the same, here's what's changed, here where it's coming from. Yeah. And that was a difficult period. That took like a year and a half to really go through. And like, there's a lot of people that, what we found is that the promises that we were kind of making as a leadership team in terms of like, this is the expectation. Because I think unofficially, we always set that expectation, and that reflected in the people we hired, was not necessarily the same at all levels. And then we had leadership that was making promises that about, oh no, this is more of a lifestyle job, or this is more of this, or this is more of that. And we saw a lot of conflict with that because they're like, well, that was never our intent. But now you've created a subculture.
The standards diluted as you went further.
And completely kind of like expectations are being divergent. And we had to kind of bring that back and just
had to hit a reset in the culture.
And I was really, that was bruising.
That's tough. Because when you're resetting a culture, there's people that are going to be unhappy about it. Some people are going to leave. Some people are going to fight it for a while. Like depending on how your leadership teams, whether they take that mantle and they take that flag and run with it, or if they're also reluctant on that culture change.
And you also go through this, I mean, you see it in the startup world where the people that got you from 0 to 1 are not necessarily the people who are going to get you from 1 to 2. And that's really, really hard because obviously on one side, like there's a loyalty and there's an appreciation.
You want to reward loyalty. Do you reward loyalty or performance?
Exactly, right? And so you struggle with that because then ultimately you have to have an honest conversation with everybody, which is like, at some point, everybody this company is going to keep evolving, and like you have to continue earning your place on the team, right? And it's really hard, and I think that we learned better ways to to have those tough conversations, and to be more honest about like, hey, like there's a lot of influence, I think, Netflix culture around like the keeper tests, and around those kind of structures, which is just like, you can still make people leave with dignity. And that's a hard skill that took a while to learn. We're saying like, that doesn't take away from everything that you did to get us here. But like now the team is in a position where it can't grow unless you grow. And we have to have an honest conversation about whether or not you can grow.
If the team outgrows you and your pace in which you're improving, right? That's part of it. It's like, I think that employees sometimes struggle with. I would say one of the things as a founder, as an entrepreneur, as the David in the story, you hit in your face, you hit your limitations constantly. You were constantly like hit by your limitations. And I remember a younger version of me was pretty upset, like a couple things not working out. Like, and I went to my mentor and I'm like, man, I'm trying my best. And he looked at me and said, well, your best is not good enough.
Ooh.
You're like, ouch. What do you? Because you want to feel like your best is good enough. He goes, your best is not good enough. What made you? And it was tough love. He's like, what makes you think your current best should be good enough? Just because it's your best. So find another best. Find like, what does that next level look like? And I think that's interesting. As an entrepreneur, you're constantly faced with that because you realize that my company is not going to grow if I don't grow.
Exactly.
But sometimes when you're in the machine, you don't always come face to face with that. And that's sort of what you're facing was like, how do I increase the skin in the game to an individual employee who might not be seeing the impact of their lack of growth?
And I think it's funny because as a founder, especially as like a venture-backed founder now, you have a pretty constant scoreboard in front of you, where it's just like, are you growing at the right rate? Is your business, all the metrics of your business? Are you able to successfully fundraise? How are you doing compared to your competitors? Like, the investment world and will let you know pretty quickly where
and it's
you
results.
stand.
I don't care how hard you're trying. I don't care about effort. Great. You're not sleeping. You're not working every weekend. Okay. What are your numbers? And that's all I care about.
Exactly. So then you have to go, okay, how do I merge that with knowing that a startup is ultimately about like experimentation and failure is part of that process, but then it's still expecting performance. What does performance mean? Is performance just about delivering on the numbers, or is it about taking risk? Is it a mixture of the two? And it's like, I think that's the really tough part about like a CEO and a founder is that like you are constantly faced with that immediate scoreboard. But then you have to like find a way to like set the right expectation, but also give enough room for the magic to happen, that experimentation to happen. So not that the market will give you that, but you have to find a way to give that to your team.
Yes. Yeah. I think you make a great case here for culture. You make a great case for teamwork. But you also make a great case for your leadership team had to level up. Now, you had to level up as a leader. So what were what were some leadership like growth moments for Nic? Like the boy Nic that had to, the 23-year-old Nic that had to like grow out of, certain habits that he formed earlier. What were some like hard leadership moments for you in your own growth?
I think there's a few. One of them was like learning to let go of the keyboard, even from the coding standpoint. That was definitely
you still
a big
wanted
one.
to, you were still the builder.
Yeah, exactly.
We're builders.
And you have to learn to like get that vicariously through the teams that you've empowered to go build, as opposed to you trying to build it yourself. That's a lot lesson. I've kind of fumbled a few times on that one because it's so hard, right? I've brought in some executives lately that like have challenged me straight up, going like, you come back to my office after a big leadership meeting and be like, how useful do you think that meeting went? And like when you hear that from your subordinate, you're just like, oh shit, okay, let's talk about this.
Yeah.
And being open to that, I think I've created a culture that like we can give each other that pretty raw feedback, which is good. You hear it all the way time from your investors and your board and things like that, right? It's a tough gig, but then you have to decide, like, everybody is replaceable, and do I still want this job? And I don't, I can be a different role. I can be, innovation person. I could be a developer. It's like, if I want to be CEO, then I better, like, this is not, I'm not entitled to this job, regardless if I'm a shareholder or not. Like, they are separate, and I better like show that I am learning and growing, or like this job will no longer be mine.
I think that's it shows the level of humility you have to understand that genuinely, because we sometimes in this world mythologize the Steve Jobs and Elon Musk's and Bezos.
He lost his job.
Right. Steve Jobs got fired for being a bad leader.
Musk got fired from PayPal
for being a bad leader. Now, Jobs, I think, learned the lesson, because Ad Catmull in his book talks about how in Pixar days, Jobs sort of eases up and learns to have some people skills. And then, when he comes back to Apple for round 2, he does a bit better. Elon Musk, I don't think, learned the lesson. I think the lesson he learned was retain 51%, so they can never remove you.
Wrong lesson.
Wrong lesson. Bezos gets an executive coach in I think it was in his book, but I think in 2010 kind of period where they start seeing growth, he realizes he's not people managing. He hasn't grown past certain limitations of his own, right? Like, there is this sort of like, the team that got you here won't get you there, but the leader you are that got you here won't get you there either. And there's a part of that, like, do you grow into that next phase of leadership? We got to Series B, you 5X from Series A to Series B, riding a pretty good wave, got some new team members in. That's 2003. We're 2005, near the end, getting into 2006. We're 2005. Geez, 2025, going into 26. How are things looking? What's the future? Where are we in this David versus Goliath battle? Because obviously it's still happening. What's the current? Where are you currently? What numbers are you comfortable sharing with us? Like, what are some of the milestones? What's some of the growth rate, and what's to come?
So I say, like, we have tens of thousands of customers, tens of millions in revenue. Yeah. So we've definitely like reinvented ourselves and are doing pretty well. I think that, how about this? What used to keep me up at night, certainly like in the kind of reinvention phase and 5 years ago, was like, can we survive? Can we, we bit off a lot. Can we get to the other side? What keeps me up at night now is, can I capture the opportunity that we've created for ourselves? And that's a funner, like, it is better.
Yeah.
Like, I have, like, don't get me wrong, I live and breathe and think about this nonstop, but it's more fun to think about, like, to be focused on the upside as opposed to like, will we survive another day? It's really nice to be out of that.
You were swinging for first base.
Yeah.
And now you feel like you can swing for some home runs. You can take the bet.
So I think for us, it's really about, like, when we think about our country expansions, our product expansions, like, we have a lot of exciting things coming out, and that's a lot, it's funny because in the moment you're still thinking, well, we're still tiny compared to Square, and we could be so much bigger, and there's all this bigger stuff coming, and like, that's good. That fire keeps you going, but then you have to catch yourself and be like, yeah, but like, first of all, we've grown a fantastic amount in the past couple of years. We continue to grow really well. We've all this fun stuff coming. Like, just enjoy it for a second.
Enjoy it.
I think that's the main point of focus right now.
Yeah.
And I think what's tough is that, like, you have to have this like endless paranoia in order for you to even get to this point and survive.
Only the paranoid survive.
Exactly,
sort of.
right? So then you get a little bit scared of putting down that paranoia.
Because you also got really good at it.
Right.
It's become your skill.
Yeah.
I think like one of the challenges, one of the founders, typical David's best skills is the ability to see where they are, to see where they want to be, identify the gap and tackle it. But if you're always in the gap, then you're never looking at the reverse gap of like, where'd you come from? Can you be happy for a moment, right?
And I'm bad at that as a leader in terms of like the team has to remind me like, why don't we do a celebration about this milestone? And why don't we do a pizza party? Why don't we do this? And I'm like, but tomorrow, like it's just like this next challenge, this next hill to climb, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's a skill. That's
Was there a moment for you to sit back where you were like, okay, yeah, like I'm no longer in survival mode. Was there maybe the big partnership with Verizon? Did that feel like a moment? Was there a leadership moment? Any moment where you know, a moment on the beach on vacation where you didn't have to answer everyone's question as CEO?
I don't know. You have moments, but they're so fleeting where it's just like, we announced a big partnership with Verizon, or you have this day where you have like everything clicks and you have great talks with investors, great talks with your team, great talks with customers. And you're like, oh, we got this, right? And then the next day, everything's on fire again. And you're just like, that was fleeting and you're back at it. So I don't know if there's any, people talk about like that letting go. And I've never experienced an exit. And obviously we're focused on just building a big, fantastic business. And we have got so much more of this business in us. That's not our focus. But then you have founders that talk about, that like catalyst of like, okay. Yeah. But then you also see like, I remember seeing a Business Harvard review that says like, you've sold your business, congratulations, get ready for depression. And it's like, so.
Because the adrenaline of what you've been running on, from fire to fire to like goal to goal, you've been fueled by goals. And now there is no gap. There is no goal. Yeah. Which is why you go, okay, so when's this next startup? Like what's the next game to play?
So what I try to remember is like when I'm 80 years old and I'm looking back, like I got to find a way to like enjoy the moment right now, regardless of how many fires, what's working, what's not. Because if not, you can't just look for that. It has to be now. Yeah. It has to be. And I look back, it's funny. I look back at the 20s and the craziness and all that. And I look at it pretty fondly. Yeah. But in the moment, it doesn't feel that way.
In the moment. So, okay. Looking back at some of this story, when we were analyzing David versus Goliath stories, we sort of identified that there are some things and characteristics and behaviors about the leaders, that are interesting and unique and sort of we can learn from. Then there are things that we can learn from the team, kind of how the team works together, what the teamwork looks like. And then there's sort of the strategy that they use, right? What are some of the pieces? And so we've talked about that, like, they rewrite the rules of the game. David can't fight Goliath in his own battle. He's going to lose it. They build their own surfboards and learn to ride it. They run up the stairs. They swing they have less to lose, so they swing for the fence more often because they go, what am I going to lose? Just let me do, right? That was you taking on the license. Like, it's like less to lose, so I'll just take on a license. I'll try this out, right? So we've got some of these strategies. Those are some of my terms, right? But I'd like you to reflect on these three buckets. What were some of the key characteristics of yourself as a founder or other leadership teams that you go, you know what, these are a few characteristics or behaviors that I think are essential for founders to succeed? Some of the teamwork pieces, we obviously focused on culture for you, but what are some of the teamwork pieces that really made the difference? And then were there any other strategy pieces that come to mind? Obviously that we've talked about that middle, we've talked about the transparency, but those are the kind of three buckets. So I'll get you to reflect on kind of all three here as one of our final big questions.
All right. So maybe on the personal side, on the founder side, like, I mean, this is a bit of a cliche, but like perseverance. I'll take it a step further and say perseverance. I'd say like dogged, maybe a little bit of anti-authority. I will prove you wrong no matter how much logic you throw at me kind of thing, right? Yeah. Like, I think that
Rebellious,
like you
slightly
just like
stubborn enough to.
I think for me that came from like there's a counterculture in computers in the 90s is about like hacking, and it was about you weren't cool when you got into computers. You weren't, but to the world in there, like it was your world, right? And you like techno and all that stuff. It was just like there's a counterculture to it all that I jived with really, really well. Like all your friends were getting real jobs at the banks or in oil and gas or whatever.
No, it's nonconformist.
Like,
you have to like you have to have contrarian opinions. If you have opinions that everyone else has and then you're right about those, great. You don't
exactly.
It doesn't change anything.
Exactly.
If you have contrarian opinion, you're most likely wrong, usually in contrarian opinions. But when you're right, there's a moment.
Exactly. You get all the upside, right? So I think I think that the founders have that in them. But I mean, the thing to remember is like for every successful founder, there's like thousands that haven't found it.
Yeah.
Probably because they were wrong, or they just get lucky.
Was wrong.
The timing wasn't right.
The wave didn't show up. They built a surfboard. And they were just too early or too late
100%
to the wave. Yeah.
I think in terms of, okay, so let's go to the team and culture. I mean, like we are trustworthy. That gets into honesty. That just gets into, if you just need to be able to get the team to like, especially your immediate team, so like to just trust you. Like you just can't play games. You just have to be brutally, I do that with, I say not brutally honest, that's the wrong term, but just like completely honest and like
candor, radically candid.
Yeah,
right? You can use that. Yeah,
and I think I'm an oversharer, but that's part of like how I build trust. Where it's just like I'm sending pictures of my kid, and like here's what I did for my weekend,
adorable,
and like thank you, and like I'm like oversharing everything with my team all the time. Like I kind of let them into my life quite a lot. Yeah. But it's just like it's just like letting them. It's building a certain level of trust. Like this is who I am. This is who I am through and through. Yeah. And like they know me pretty well at this point. So it builds that confidence for them to be able to have honest conversations with me and just to be themselves too, right? And then finally, last one is on the market strategy.
On the strategy, like the positioning, the strategy, what you focused on, what you didn't. Yeah, could be product, could be market.
So I'm biased, and this kind of goes back to the first point. Like I love a contrarian viewpoint. It's like it's just like it's funny. You see that in the investment world, the startup world, whatever. It's just like they all talk about disruption, but man, do they like their like boxed models?
Here's our model that we know works. This is best practice.
Yeah, exactly right. It's like it's like we build vertical software for this, and then we're gonna do this sell this, and investors love that, and it's just like. Yeah, but everybody else is doing that. I think that goes to like the harder path where it's like, do something that's really hard. And like, because then there'll be less people trying it. Like it's just.
Be less competition.
Yeah. And it's like, for us, it's like we tried to build a payments company from scratch. And it's like, yeah, it's brutal, but I think it's paying off. Yeah. And I love startups. Like I love startups with hardware. I mean, there's the word hard in there. Yeah. I just love when I talk to founders, and it's a privilege now of like, I get you be a bit more prominent founder in our market, so I get to meet lots of other founders and young people, and it's like and when the ones that bore me are the ones that are just like we're making a CRM for this and this and that, and you're just like that's fine, like go
you'll make some money, go yeah.
But it's the ones that are just like we are doing X, and it's just like and you're just like you look at them sideways, and you're just like it might not work, but like. Yeah,
good on you for trying.
Yeah, but if it does, then they're trying something that like very little other people are trying to solve, and I love that.
Yeah. Well, Nic, we've had a wonderful conversation here. What's next for Helcim? Just take me into the future. What is 2025 and beyond? What's the next 3 years, 4 years? What are you excited about? What are you most looking forward to? What battles, other Goliaths are you looking forward to? Give me a pitch into the future to end our episode.
I'll leave you with this. So it's just part of 26. So like we are really liking this concept of something we're calling open payments, which is around like you hear about open banking, and what's open banking about? Open banking is really about like giving optionality to customers about like their data and who they get service and portability and and we're taking a similar approach to payments, and we're about to hit that in a very big way in the market, where we've really looked at like how we're operating in marketing. If you think about like say a Square really makes a little walled ecosystem, little walled garden all in one. Like here, you use our stuff and so on, right? And what we've realized, in part because we're servicing so many different types of businesses, way more businesses than the average. So like I was describing, like it's like whether it's like a wholesaler or a vet or a plastic surgeon or like an auto dealer or whatever, right? It's kind of like we're never going to be able to make all the different software that they need, and there's going to be people that can specialize in that. But what we want to do is meet them where they are and be the absolute best payments and financial services company that we can be for them. And this gets into the idea of like, there's still a lot of walled gardens in the industry.
Yeah.
And we're about to like drive right through those walled gardens.
We're going to tear down the walls.
And I think that's the next David and the Goliath
I like
battle.
it. I love it. Because I think the theme that goes into that is that the Davids often arm the rebels.
Yeah.
So you want to tear down the walls and arm the rebels, like that.
And ultimately there's really like one thing driving us, which is ultimately like be the world's most loved payments company and serve small business customers that are, being taken advantage of or not being well serviced like every day. And anything that gets in our way of that, we will headbutt until we get there. So
that's amazing. Well, Nic, I'm rooting for you. We're excited to have been part of your journey, to continue to help support your leadership team and their growth and their learning. And let's see, we're excited to see this next chapter. So thank you for being part of our show. Thank you for giving us a story to our audience and being here today.
Thanks for hearing the story.
Appreciate it. Awesome.